Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's webinar. My name is Nick Child. I am the Director of Client Experience here. I'm excited to be with you. Today, I have with me Brad Harris. He is the Senior Attorney here at Harris Federal Employee Law Firm. Brad is an expert in this field. He has spent over 15 years now really focusing in on federal employee benefits and helping people get approval for those benefits. In fact, over the last 15 years, we've gotten over 3,500 approvals for federal employees, and we did that at a 99% success rate. And I say that because we're really proud of that. Proud of the work that we've been able to do and all of the people that we've been able to help. And so with that, all this webinar is just another way to try and help federal employees understand their benefits even better. So we're here to help you, to answer questions. In fact, our team is here live to chat with you and answer questions. So feel free to leave those in the chat area here. If you have really specific questions about your situation, please call in to our office and schedule a consultation. Those are free consultations that we do. And that's not a sales pitch or a sales tactic. It's because there are so many nuances to these benefits, and we really need to know specific information on your situation to give you the best advice possible. And so we suggest that you do that and call into our office. But with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Brad so we can get started.
Welcome to today's webinar. I'm very excited about talking to you about the OPM's program for federal disability retirement. You know that the Office of Personnel Management has a very confusing program, which is also very beneficial to some people, and it's called Federal Disability Retirement. Unfortunately, because it's kind of complex, there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. So I'm looking forward to explaining to you more about what it is and how it works. To begin with, the Federal Employee Retirement System is called FERS, and that applies to practically all federal employees that joined after 1984. Before 1984, people were placed under the Civil Service Retirement System. What you need to know is that this benefit is already built into your retirement system. However, it must be applied for and proven through an adjudication process administered by the Office of Personnel Management. How much does this benefit pay? For the first year, it pays 60% of your high 3 average. Every year thereafter, 40% of your high 3 average. And that lasts until you reach your 62nd birthday, at which time you're converted over to regular retirement. This money is taxable income. What I mean by that is you have to pay taxes on this money from federal disability retirement. And also you have the choice to keep your life and your health insurance, as well as a choice for surviving spouse benefit. People want to know, how much does this benefit, what does it get me? Well, let's look at what is your high 3 average. I'm talking about your high salary for 3 years. What's the average of that? And then let's take 60% of that number. That's what you'll be paid the first year you're receiving OPM medical disability retirement benefits. Thereafter, it's 40% of that number until you reach the age 62, at which time you'll be converted into your regular pension. Medical disability retirement from the Office of Personnel Management is designed for those who are having physical or mental difficulties in fully performing their jobs. That's a pretty broad statement. It can include a number of different medical conditions. For example, anxiety, stress disorder, depression, manic depression. It can include things like post-traumatic stress disorder. A person might be suicidal, for example. It can include lesser-known conditions, but are still seriously affecting the person such that it creates a deficiency in their performance or their conduct or their attendance at work. This would be things like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. Some other medical conditions that qualify are diabetes or morbid obesity or cancer. You can have other qualifying medical problems such as attention deficit disorder or even migraine headaches. All of these qualify as medical conditions that might gain OPM medical disability retirement, not just orthopedic injuries such as knee replacements or rotator cuff tears, lumbar impingement or compression fractures. So it's not just orthopedic injuries, it's all types of medical conditions that can cause the difficulty which qualifies for the OPM medical disability retirement benefit. You know, there's a lot of confusion and questions out there about OPM medical disability retirement. In fact, there's a lot of misinformation or myths. So I'm going to have Nick come in and talk about that with me, and I'll try to address various myths that exist with regards to OPM medical disability retirement.
Thanks, Brad. So I'm in charge of customer experience here, and we get a ton of questions about federal disability retirement that cover a broad spectrum, but these are a few that we get a lot that I just want to make sure that people really have a good understanding of. So let me start out with the first one, which is, do you have to be totally disabled to qualify?
You know, that's one of the most common questions that we get. People assume that because it's called medical disability retirement. But the word disability is actually a misnomer here. It has more to do with a deficiency at work than a total disability. The word disability typically implies the inability to do anything. We're talking about a deficiency in your particular job and you performing your current job, not any job, just that particular current job. So we're going to look at what the requirements are of the job you're in, and we're going to see if the medical conditions create some sort of deficiency in your performance or your attendance or your conduct. This is a very common misunderstanding between the word medical disability retirement and Social Security disability. You see, it can be so difficult that even doctors get it wrong most of the time, and we have to explain to doctors we're not talking about total disability. We're only talking about occupational deficiency.
That was really interesting to me when I first learned about it, because it really showed me how many people could apply for this and get approved. It definitely wasn't the type of disability I was thinking about. So the second question that we get a lot is, does this medical condition have to be caused by my job?
No, absolutely not. Now, it does if you were talking about filing for federal workers' compensation. Every federal workers' compensation case, you must prove that the work activity caused the injury. But when you apply for OPM medical disability retirement, we don't have to prove that the work incident caused the medical deficiency. In fact, any type of medical condition would qualify a person for OPM medical disability retirement as long as that condition started after they began the job or the condition worsened. Let's say, for example, it was pre-existing. That pre-existing condition worsened during the time that a person was employed there. I'm not talking about at work. I'm just talking about since the person began working for the federal government.
So what you're saying is, if I've worked for the federal government for, let's say, 10 years, and I'm out playing recreational soccer one night and bust my knee, and that keeps me from doing my job, then I could get medical disability retirement.
Absolutely. That sure as heck wouldn't qualify for a workers' compensation claim, but it would certainly qualify for an OPM medical disability retirement claim.
So that leads right into question number 3, which is, all right, I've hurt my knee playing soccer. I can't work in my job anymore, and they've modified my job to accommodate me. Does that mean I can't qualify?
No, as a matter of fact, that actually proves that you do qualify. The fact that they've modified your job indicates you can't fully perform your job anymore as a result of a medical condition. Now, we have to get a doctor to confirm that. The doctor has to talk about what is your medical condition, what are the limitations that you have as a result of that condition, And does that conflict with your performance or attendance or your conduct at work? Now, it's a good thing that they provided you with a modified job, but the fact that you have a modified job actually indicates you will probably qualify for OPM medical disability retirement. You might think, well, I'm in a modified job, why don't I just stay here? Well, a lot of people don't realize that if you're placed in a modified job, that means you're no longer in protected status. You're no longer under the union contract because you have a special job due to your medical condition. So you no longer have the protection of getting to keep your job because it's a modified job. And at any time, you can be sent home for any reason.
All right, that's great. So just so you all know, what we do here at Harris Federal Employee Law Firm is work with your doctors to help them understand what they need to provide to get the proper information to the OPM about your disability here. So we're going to move on to question 5 now, which is, do you also have to qualify for Social Security disability?
No, I'm going to explain to you what Social Security disability is. To begin with, that is the total disability that I was talking about a minute ago. That is the inability to do any work anywhere. But the reason why there's a lot of confusion on this subject is when you apply for OPM medical disability retirement, you're required to also submit an application to the Social Security Administration for Social Security disability insurance. That application does not have to be approved by the Social Security Administration. All you have to do is get a receipt showing that you made an application. Well, why is that necessary? Well, obviously, your employing agency would like to push some of this expense over to the Social Security Administration, and they can do so if you get approved for Social Security disability.
Okay, that's really interesting, and I think that's that's what a lot of people miss and get confused about. So, another question that we get a lot is understanding who approves the federal disability retirement. A lot of people are worried that it might be their agency, and they seem to be a burden on their agency, and their agency isn't going to get them approved. But is that the case here?
The decision of whether or not you're approved for OPM medical disability retirement is made by employees of the Office of Personnel Management, not your employing agency. It's true that we do have to get some information from your employing agency. Obviously, we need to confirm, when did you start working for the federal government? What kind of work do you do, and how much money do you make there? But the employing agency does not make the determination. It's the people at the Office of Personnel Management. They oversee the adjudication and the administration of this retirement claim.
Okay, that's really good because we get a ton of questions about who is going to approve that. And just to be clear, this is going to be something that is submitted to the OPM and determined upon by the OPM. So with that, another question that we get a whole lot is in relationship to federal workers' compensation. So if I get approved for federal disability retirement, does that mean that I can't make a federal workers' compensation claim?
Actually, it comes to us the opposite way most of the time. People are making a federal employee workers' compensation claim, and they think that that prevents them from making a claim for OPM medical disability retirement. The truth is, if you're out there making a federal employee workers' compensation claim, you really should be applying for OPM medical disability retirement as well. If you have your federal employee workers' compensation claim approved and they're paying you lost wages, they can always make a decision to terminate those wages, and that would leave you without any form of income. Might be a good idea to go ahead and get your OPM medical disability retirement application in and let us help it get processed to see if we can get a decision on it. If it's approved, we can just put it on hold until your federal employee workers' compensation benefits end for whatever reason. Then you would have the OPM medical disability retirement benefits to fall upon and not be totally out in the cold.
So what I hear you saying is that federal disability retirement can be almost an insurance plan for if your federal workers' compensation was to be stopped by the OPM.
That's absolutely correct, and it's a very important financial planning tool for the security of your family. If you get it approved, your OPM medical disability retirement, you don't have to start taking it. You can say, I just want to put that on hold while I'm continuing to receive my workers' compensation benefits, and until such time as maybe they'll kick me off of workers' compensation benefits. I'll have that in place for my family to rely upon as some form of income security.
Okay, that's great to know. So this one is one of the most important questions of all of these because it has a lot of implications that come with it. If I'm separated from service, does that mean I can apply any time once I'm separated?
To begin with, you don't have to be separated from service to apply. But to address your question about can you apply anytime, unfortunately, no. It's so sad when people call us and they've already missed their deadline to apply for OPM medical disability retirement. The deadline is a strict 1-year deadline from your separation of employment. The reason why this gets confusing and we see this sad situation is a lot of people they don't know if they've actually been separated from their employment. That situation occurs, for example, when a person is drawing federal employee workers' compensation. They may not be aware that they've been drawing that for 3 or 4 years and the HR department just separated them from employment. And that clock, that 1-year deadline clock, is ticking and now gone by. So no, it's important that you apply for your OPM medical disability retirement before 1 year from your date of separation. In fact, there's no getting around it. If you miss that deadline, you are out of luck.
Yeah, we never like to pressure people into anything, but this is one fact that we just can't avoid, is that once you are separated from service, the clock starts ticking. And we want to get in there as soon as possible and help people. Okay, so one of the next things I want to ask you about is really a really key piece to this, and it's can you explain to us whether or not you're allowed to work once you're on federal disability retirement?
Absolutely. In fact, that is one of the biggest benefits or big bonus with regards to this program is you are allowed to work. You just have to work in the private sector. You can no longer work for the federal government. But this is amazing when you think about it. Here you are drawing 40% for the next 20 years or whatever until you reach 62, and all during that time period, you're allowed to earn up to 80% of what you were earning for the federal government. That would be in some new job, maybe as a realtor, maybe that's selling something, maybe that's teaching something out at the junior college, whatever it is, you're allowed to earn up to 80% of what you were earning while you're drawing OPM medical disability retirement. A lot of people use this benefit as a new start on life.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think is so interesting about this. And if you want to look at the chart here, Brad talked earlier about the high 3 average and how that is an average of your highest 3 recurring salaries. And they take that average and then take 60% of that for the first year, and that would be your annuity, and then 40% every year after that. So if you look at this chart, you can see that adding 80% onto those amounts, you're looking at the 140% of your original salary in the first year and 120% every year thereafter until you're the age 62 when your regular retirement would kick in. So as you can see, this is a huge benefit to people that most people just don't understand how it works. Okay, so we've looked at this chart and you can see that these annuities would be paid out until the age of 62. And 62 is a really important age. It's when your regular retirement will kick in. And there's also some other things that happen around that. So, Brad, can you tell us the other interesting parts of federal disability retirement as it pertains to that age?
Yes, think of every year that you work for the federal government, you get a year's worth of service credit. And you add up those credit years, and that determines the amount of your regular pension when you get to be 62. What's interesting about the OPM medical disability retirement benefit is that although you've left working for the federal government, all those years from that point up to the age of 62 still count as if you were working for the federal government. In other words, they are creditable years of service that are added to your years of service at the time you go out on Office of Personnel Management Medical Disability Retirement. You see, these extra years will be added to the calculation of your regular retirement.
So that's a really interesting point, and I think just with my example earlier, I hurt my knee playing soccer after 10 years of service with the federal government. I was the age 42 at that point. Now I'm 62. Now it's going to look on my retirement that I'd been working there for 30 years.
Yes, the 10 years pre-existing, the 10 years before you went out on OPM, plus these entire 20 years that you've been drawing this benefit up to the age of 62. Those are added together to come up with the number 30, and now that 30% is what's going to be the determination. Those 30 years of credible service will be used to determine what your regular pension is at age 62.
That's some awesome information, and we're so excited to talk to you more about these questions. We know you have a lot more questions, and this webinar will be open for about 10 or 15 more minutes for you to be able to ask those and get answers from our team. If we're not able to answer your question in that time, feel free to call us anytime for a free consultation and get some more information about this. Brad, do you have any final notes you'd like to mention?
Well, you know, there's a lot of information here, and I would suggest that you might listen to this presentation more than once. There's just a whole lot of information. It's very complex. That's why, you know, we think it's important for you to use a professional in getting this benefit, to make sure you don't miss the most important parts, and therefore just lose out completely because you missed an important step.
So we hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about some common questions with federal disability retirement. And with that, we're going to end this webinar. Thank you.